Hello students! Welcome to tutorial 4. In this tutorial you'll be learning how to use the pan crop tool, and this can be used to adjust the dimensions and orientation of your video. So let's say you have an image or a video clip and the aspect ratio of this doesn't match your desired ratio. So now if you look at this one, this is actually a little smaller. The dimensions are smaller than what you want, which is why you get these black bars on the sides. Now you don't want this. You want this image to exactly match the size, the ratio of your final video. You want to remove the black bars. So to do this, you can see this little icon over here. It says Event Pan Crop. So you click this and a window pops up. There is an easy way to get away with this whole aspect ratio thing, and that is to select one of the presets. Now if your output is there in one of the presets, or if your desired ratio is there in one of the presets, let's say 16:9, that is the ratio that I am using right now. So in this case you don't really have to do much. You just select this and you can see that the black bars are gone. But say that your desired ratio is not there in these. In that case, you'll have to use these icons and this workspace. So let's go through each of these icons and I'll teach you how to use them. Now this one just allows you to hide or show your video properties. So if you click on this, all the information that's shown over here is the information of your video. So this is the width, height, and a lot more things, but you won't really be needing to use these because there is an easier way. But one useful thing might be the angle. So since you might want to change the angle, one way to do this is to just rotate it over here. But if you want a perfect angle, say you want exactly 90 degrees, then you can just type 90 and you'll get this. 45. Just type 45 and get the angle. Now this is useful because adjusting the angle manually might be a little difficult, but otherwise I think just manually making changes on the workspace is the easiest way to make changes to your ratio or orientation. Now wait, let me fix this. Now next in this bar you have the normal edit tool, which is your pointer, and you have a zoom edit tool, which is a magnifying glass. Now you can't use these two together. You have to choose one of these. So what I'm using right now is a normal edit tool. This just works like your normal cursor. There's nothing too special about it. And you'll be using this most of the time. Now what this zoom edit tool does is that it works like a normal cursor, except that when you left click, it'll zoom in. When you right click, it'll zoom out. So that's the only thing that's special about this tool. Next, you have this symbol, which is enable snapping, and it's a cursor, your normal cursor pointer with a little snapping spark on it. Now what this does is it allows you to move your selection in the workspace, except that it will snap to the edges of your video. So if you're moving this freely, and if you try to get this closer to the edge, then it will automatically align itself with the edge of the video. Now this won't happen if you deselect this, if you disable this tool. Let's try. Okay, so that's disabled right now, and you can see that it doesn't automatically align itself. It just moves like there's nothing over there. So to make things easier, you can enable this and let it snap. It's useful when you want to perfectly align your selection with the video. Now next we have this tool called next we have lock aspect ratio. It's locked right now, so when it's locked and you try to change the dimensions of the video by stretching one of these little boxes, then you'll notice that the ratio remains the same. The length in terms of the width the width and length of the video are in the same ratio and they don't change no matter how much you stretch it in whatever direction. If this increases, then this will increase the same amount. But if you disable this option and then you stretch, then it really doesn't care how much it stretches horizontally or how much vertically. It just depends on how you move your cursor. For example, you want to set a custom dimension, not one of the presets. Then you can set it and then you can lock it so that it remains the same, and you can just change the dimensions like that without changing the ratio. Now, all this time, you probably have noticed that this center point at F, has remained here unless you moved it this way. So even if you stretch it from here, you shrink it from here, or shrink it from anywhere really, your center remains the same, and that is because this tool right here, size about center, has been selected. So as long as this is selected, your center point is not going to change. If you were to deselect this tool and then stretch it, then your center point just moves in the direction you're stretching or shrinking it in. So yeah. The last tool over here is these two arrows perpendicular to each other. Now, right now it is move freely. You have both the arrows perpendicular, so that, which is why I can move this selection in any kind of direction. However, if you were to click this once, the vertical arrow disappears and now you have only the horizontal arrow, and this is move in X only. So in this case, you won't be able to move this vertically. You can only move this horizontally. So I'm trying to move it vertically, but it won't, because the vertical side is locked. So you can also do the opposite. This is move in Y only. So even if you try to move it along the X axis in the horizontal direction, it won't move. So that's it for your basic pan crop. And if you look at this timeline over here, this is an extra timeline you have with the pan crop. You can also animate your panning and cropping, and this is how you zoom and rotate your video. So next you will learn about animating using the pan crop feature. So now you'll be learning how to zoom in and zoom out of your video. In this part of the tutorial, I'm only going to be using an image, which is this image, to explain it, since it's going to be easier to understand what kind of effects the zooming or zooming out has on your clip. So when you want to zoom in or zoom out, there's always an initial position. So if you want to zoom out, then you'd have to start closer to the image. Because if this is your initial position, and then if you zoom out, then after you zoom out, all these white regions that I've selected over here are just going to appear black. So if you want to zoom out, then you have to start smaller and then gradually move like this. If you want to zoom in, then you could always start big and then go small. This keyframe, this little diamond over here, shows you the initial position of your video, of your clip. So this is my initial position, which is the full image. And if you noticed, since this clip has been stretched to 5 seconds on my main timeline, that's 5 seconds, the timeline over here, this timeline over here, shows only 5 seconds, which means whatever changes you're gonna make are gonna make changes only on this clip. So since this is your initial position, you want to have more keyframes to give them other positions so that your video can zoom in or zoom out. So depending on how fast you want the video to zoom in or zoom out, you're gonna place your keyframes. Let's say I want the video to completely zoom out by the end of the clip. So I'm going to place my cursor over here and add a new keyframe. And then when I add the new keyframe, I have to show them the final position. So this is still my initial position. I want to show them my final position, so I'm going to shrink the video the dimensions of the video. Now let's see what kind of effect this has on our video. This is my initial position, and then they just zoom in. Now there are other things you can do with your keyframes. Say you right click this keyframe, and then you get a lot of these options. Right now it's linear, which means that it's going to move at a constant speed. I can also make it fast to make it move faster than it normally would on linear. So let's look at the change. Yeah, did you notice? It moved really fast, faster than before, and then it slowed down. So you can really try adjusting with the keyframes and giving them effects to get the desired kind of zoom in or zoom out effect you want. So that's it for zooming. So now you learn how to rotate the video, how to animate a rotation. So it's basically, the keyframes and everything are basically the same. The only difference is that instead of changing the dimensions, you change the angle. So let's say this is your original angle, that is angle 0, and by the end you want it to turn 180 degrees. So maybe you can type 180, or you can even do that manually. So you can see that the F over here has flipped. So over here the F is straight, and then here at the end it has been flipped. So this means it's going to take a 180 degree rotation in the whole video. Right, so that is how you rotate, and just like how you zoom in and zoom out, you can add keyframes in the middle to make it stop, or to speed up the rotation and then slow down, or whatever you want. You can also, of course, do this manually if you find using the angles option difficult. So the last thing you'll be learning in this tutorial is panning. Whatever we've been doing so far, like zooming and rotating, is technically a part of panning, but panning also means to swing the video in order to follow something appearing on it, and it can also be used as a sort of transition. So this is how you just you just click on this event pan crop, like we've been doing so far, and this, as always, is your initial position. So let's say I want this whole video to move towards the left by the end of 5 seconds. So in that case, I'm gonna have to move the selection to the opposite side. Since I want to move this video to the left, my selection has to go to the right. So my final position will be somewhere here. And over here, I have to move my selection to the right. And the best way to do this is to use this option. Since I want to move it horizontally, I can just select the X, move in X only option, because if I were to move freely, then it might even move up or down, and I don't want that to happen. So I'll just move it in the X direction and stop over here. So let's look at what happened to our video. So as you can see, since I moved the selection to the right as my final position, this whole video moved to the left. So this is very useful for using as a transition, or giving transition, or even just following an item on your video. So that's it for this tutorial. We'll see you in the next one, and the next one we'll be learning about transitions that you can apply to the video. Right now I taught you how to use pan and crop as a makeshift transition, but in the next one we'll be using the transitions provided by Sony Vegas. So see you later. Thank you.